First is one of the most requested features in any Jurassic World Evolution game, and that is the feature of nesting and breeding. So dinosaurs, like all animals, have to breed, laying eggs and producing young. There are many young dinosaur examples in the franchise as of now, like the baby Velociraptor in the first Jurassic Park, the baby Triceratopses, the beta, the Velociraptor from Dominion, Bumpy, there are all sorts. And yeah, it would just be really cool to add this layer of parental care to the dinosaurs that can often be either the makers or breakers of your parks. It would really give them greater depth as animals. And the addition of babies would also lead to petting zoos, which would be a really cool addition as we could finally complete the Jurassic World lineup of attractions. And rearing young is also a really cool feature that we can see, as well as also having male and female dinosaurs we can see with the Nasutoceratopses. Forgot to put that petting zoo picture there. But the Nasutoceratops here, you can see the male looks vastly different from the female, and that would just be a really cool feature. And this would also allow for courtship displays to take place between males and females of a species like these T-Rexes from Prehistoric Planet. Another highly requested feature is the land-based animations for pterosaurs. Now, pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus, Hatzegopteryx, Ashdarchids, they were all capable of walking and actually spent a lot of their time on the ground, likely hunting on the ground as well. So land-based animations for pterosaurs would be really good, social interactions that they currently lack, that sort of thing, giving these animals greater depth and allowing them to interact with more species. Speaking of animals interacting with more species, the marine reptiles could be given interactions with the land and the sky. As seen in Jurassic World, the Mosasaurus both caught a pteranodon, but also took down the Indominus Rex. So allowing large predators like the Mosasaurus, the Tylosaurus, Kronosaurus, and Megalodon to be able to interact with large animals from the land and the skies, I think that would be a really cool feature to make them potentially more dangerous. Another feature that's been tossed up in the air is the changing of water depth as a brush tool. This exists in Prehistoric Kingdom where you can change the water depth but the water body still remains the same. This will allow for the possibility of swimming dinosaurs to be added, as well as other semi-aquatic species like that of giant crocodilians like Deinosuchus, and potentially large amphibians like that of Coolosuchus. All those species would be more possible if water depth were to be changed and would allow us to create more dynamic parks. Onto some pack hunting and just general interactions. So pack hunting for large carnivores like these Mapusaurus with Argentinosaurus in the documentary Planet Dinosaur. There were many large dinosaurs that would have potentially hunted in groups, and that would be a really cool thing to see reflected in many of the other species, like Mapusaurus, potentially Giganotosaurus as well, Allosaurus, all sorts. Stalking behaviors with predators using cover such as buildings, rocks or foliage to get closer to prey would also be a cool feature. Like imagine you've got a guest walking around the park and a Carnotaurus has escaped, and you're looking behind that guest and you see the Carnotaurus slowly creeping out from behind a building to get closer to the human, and then the hunt takes place. More dramatic fails of hunts would also be cool, like if a carnivore were to trip and fall or be attacked by the prey while being in a chase. I use Big Al as an example, as you saw in the documentary many examples of Big Al actually failing a hunt. This could be implemented if the animals were to react to different terrain in some way, such as going faster downhill, slower through water, or even going slower uphill. Though some animals may actually have an advantage in these areas, which would make the hunts more random and more specialized for certain animals. Some hunting animations could involve carnivores trying to bite the frills, horns, and armored backs of many of the armored herbivores like the ceratopsians, stegosaurs, and ankylosaurs. And depending on the species, the predator would be able to exploit weaknesses and bring down animals in different and creative ways, perhaps even dromaeosaurs using their toe claws in hunts. That would be another cool feature. More patterns and color variation is something that the game could really use. I use these Dominion Parasaurolophus as an example, as in the production of Jurassic World Dominion, you could actually see in some of the bonus features all the different variation that these Parasaurolophuses had. Many cross-patterning of the different parasaurs, so you had the pattern of the one on the left on the one on the right, so that sort of thing, and different amounts of stripes and different intensities in the color. I think that would be really cool to add variation. I know Prehistoric Kingdom has a similar feature where you can place all these animals down that have the same pattern, but their size and the intensity of their colors would be very different from one another, being paler or darker than another individual. Perhaps even adding genetic mutations like that of leucism, melanism, albinism, and maybe even piebaldism to certain animals. I think that would be really cool. Some detailed social hierarchies would be really cool to see at the game, with alphas and subordinates, as well as the lower members of a herd or pack. And this would give further reasoning to the conflicts within a species. So say the alpha is sort of being challenged by a lower ranking individual, that would instigate a challenge, and then you'd have a pretty brutal fight, as the alpha would probably try and potentially even kill this subordinate animal that is so far down the hierarchy. Some more dynamic fights would be really cool, with multiple dinosaurs in a fight potentially to be able to recreate scenes from the films, like the Therizinosaurus and T-Rex teaming up on the Giganotosaurus, and potentially even some proper recreations of fights from the films, such as that of the Giganotosaurus and the T-Rex in the Dominion Prologue, or the Carnotaurus and Sinoceratops in Fallen Kingdom. Making the fights less predictable would be great too, making outcomes completely random like Jurassic Park Operation Genesis had. No dinosaur had a set dominance, and the animals would just fight, and one of the dinosaurs would come out on top, and you're unsure as to which one. Locational damage is something I think would be a cool feature to implement here, showing scarring exactly where an animal has been attacked. Say if a large predator was being attacked by the Therizinosaurus, that Therizinosaurus slashes in a certain location, and that's where the scar appears, rather than these random scarring taking place on parts of the animal that weren't even attacked, and potentially can't even be caused by the certain animal that they're being fought by. Animals could also square off and back down if they think the fight isn't worth it, and not fight to the death as often. I think that would be really cool, just to be able to create a better Site B scenario where the animals aren't just killing each other. Like an Allosaurus could try and square off against a Stegosaurus, analyze the prey, and then decide it's probably not worth it. So that could be a sort of scenario we could see. Speaking of conflict, sauropods and hadrosaurs being able to fight one another and predators. So these animals currently go down way too easily than they would have in life. Sauropods would probably have been the toughest prey item to take down for many predators, and hadrosaurs too were a very tough animal to take on. These Gryposaurus fighting each other, they would have been powerful animals, similar in ferocity to that of a zebra, but on a much larger scale. And zebras can kill lions, so that gives credence to the idea that these hadrosaurs would not have gone down easily. They could have potentially bitten and kicked animals. Like, the hadrosaurs currently fight back against smaller predators that pack hunt them, but nothing in comparison to a T-Rex is not really challenged by a hadrosaur right now. Some other improvements could be transitional movement, where the animal doesn't just immediately enter a running animation from a walking animation, but have more of a flow into the animation. There could also be some extra animations like animals displaying curiosity towards objects, and perhaps smelling around different spots to track prey. Perhaps some proper herding mechanics too, sticking together to fend off predators and moving as one group. That could be sort of like a muskox situation where they'd form a ring around their young, and protect all sides from the predators, like here with these Pachyrhinosaurs and the Nanooksaurus in Prehistoric Planet. Some new biomes could also be added in Jurassic World Evolution 3. There's a whole world out there that still has not been touched, such as Australian bushland, or Florida wetlands, and potentially even the African grassland. I think the African grassland is probably one of my favourite new biomes I'd love to see in Evolution 3. It's just the idea of seeing animals on a savannah. Well, seeing dinosaurs on a savannah is just a really cool idea to me. An expanded foliage brush would be really good as well. Like here in Prehistoric Kingdom, you can select what kind of foliage you want to be part of the brush. And if you had that option in Jurassic World Evolution, you could opt for just the trees and ferns, or you could actually pick the flowers and maybe some sparse trees. And controlling the density and size ratio of the plants as well. So I think that would be really cool to create dynamic landscapes with. And potentially even having this for paleofauna, and even just individually placeable paleoflora, I meant to say. So paleobotany, like the cycads, could be placed individually rather than having to brush them on. Custom islands and maps is another feature that I think Evolution 3 could build on. This is something that existed in Operation Genesis, where you could create your own island, determine its shape, the trees, the rivers, the mountains, and the size. So also being able to access whole islands is something I would love to see as well. Being able to utilize the whole land area to the park's advantage. And even whole islands accurate to the films, such as Nublar and Sauna, being able to create a proper Jurassic World. And on Isla Nublar, you could have a natural lagoon down in the south that connects to the ocean, so you can better recreate the park scene in Fallen Kingdom and Jurassic World. A return of the Los Cinco Muertes would also be really cool. Seeing Isla Matanceros, Muerta, Tacaño, and Peña would be great to see in Evolution 3. And giving them full island creativity would be good too. Perhaps even bringing back Sanctuary as well from Evolution 1. I think that would be pretty cool as well. Some more maps could also be set in different areas of the world, like in Eastern Asia, or Australia, Africa, and Indonesia. Other areas of South America would be really cool as well. Imagine creating a park on the Cerrado, or in Patagonia, or even in the Amazon rainforest. Something that Jurassic World Evolution 2 doesn't have that Evolution 1 does is a long campaign. The campaign in Evolution 2 functions somewhat more like a tutorial. An extended campaign like what Jurassic World Evolution had is something more that I was expecting when Jurassic World Evolution 2 came out. And yeah, making use of all the creatures in the roster is something else that Evolution 2 didn't do in its campaign. You weren't actually able to use the lagoons in the campaign. What Evolution 3 could do is actually allow you to unlock every species in the campaign rather than having to do it in challenge mode as well. But being able to use every animal in the roster I think would be really cool. Being able to utilize the aviaries, the lagoons, potential Cenozoics and habitat animals like reptiles, mammal-like reptiles and amphibians. I think that would be really cool as well. I think Chaos Theory should also return, as it was pretty fun. But having more what-if scenarios, changing key moments in the story, and properly changing the course of the franchise, I think would be something a bit better. Some of these were sort of hints at actual events that took place, except for the Spinosaurus being killed by the raptors. That was actually deleted content for Jurassic Park 3. But something that The Lost World did, which was like, what if San Diego was a successful Jurassic Park? Rather than building Jurassic Park, building Jurassic World, removing everything from Isla Nublar, or setting up a park in the Sierra Nevada. There are many more things that could change the course of history here, and I think Chaos Theory still has a lot of potential. A proper first-person mode would also be a really cool feature. Seeing yourself get eaten by a dinosaur, I think it would actually be quite interesting, to say the least. Like, imagine you get to spawn in as a guest or an ACU trooper or something like that. You go in and you're just moving around the park. A dinosaur escapes, but you're on the receiving end of that dinosaur. I think that would be an interesting way to... it would just be fun, I think. Like, it's a bit disturbing, but it would be fun. Expanded terrain tools would also be really good as well, allowing us to create waterfalls, cliffs, caves, canyons, ledges, and more to create a more dynamic landscape for the animals to live in. As you can see here with the T-Rexes at the end of Jurassic World Dominion, Rexy was on a lower ledge compared to the Buck and Doe from The Lost World. And yeah, being able to create cliffs could really create some dramatic landscapes that could be backdrops to your park. More attractions like the Cretaceous Cruise, Lookout Point, balloon and boat tours, helicopter tours, aquatic park, an underwater gyrosphere. There's all sorts of different features that can be added here, like a treetop grazers, which was actually a concept art for Jurassic World. there are all sorts of attractions that could still be added to the game, and it would be a good time to suggest animal and guest interactions, such as feeding sauropods and other animals. Bridges and elevated pathing would also be a good way to make these attractions even better, allowing you to get on a higher level to the dinosaurs. And yeah, adding lagoon gyrosphere tours or monorail tunnels going through the lagoons would also be really cool as well. And even monorail tunnels going through the aviaries. I think that would really be cool. And potentially even allowing us to create larger aviaries that have a higher height, to allow for animals like Quetzalcoatlus to be able to fly a lot higher than they currently do. I think that'd be really good. And cliffs and ledges in those aviaries, I think that'd be good as well. New natural disasters would also be a cool feature, like wildfires, locust plagues, and on Nublar or other tropical islands, a volcanic eruption would be a pretty cool feature as well. Like imagine you're just peacefully building your park and then Mount Sibo erupts. I think that would be interesting. The locust plague as well could be interesting as well, even though it wasn't the most liked plot point in Jurassic World Dominion. It could actually be pretty detrimental to a certain park. Like you've got a lot of foliage for the herbivores, and the locusts just come along and eat it all. I think that could actually be very vital to how your park turns out if locusts immediately invade it. Some more fences would be great as well. Some of these curved fences and heavy gates that Camp Cretaceous had, I think that would be really cool. And yeah, elevated fences with extended bases, I think would be cool as well, allowing us to have more secure fencing for certain animals. I think that would be easier to keep some of the more dangerous animals enclosed. But, you know, there's all sorts of fences that could also be added, like glass fences, wood fences, all sorts of things that Prehistoric Kingdom also has. And yeah, just other fences. And being able to change the height of fences and gates would also be cool as well. Being able to create a proper petting zoo and have the smaller animals not so far out of reach of the guests. And being able to recreate certain paddocks like the Indominus Rex paddock would also be good as well. Animal shelters is another feature that you could see added in Jurassic World Evolution 3, allowing animals to take shelter during rainstorms or certain natural disasters. I think that would be really good and would add to the park aspect, as animals can't just stay outside all the time. These animals could potentially seek shelter under these wooden shelters or even larger shelters that could house sauropods. That sort of thing to really give animals a place to live and it would feel more like a home, you could say. Animal enrichment is something that could also be added in Jurassic World Evolution 3, such as scratching points on trees and rocks, as well as mud and dust bathing, potentially even adding termite mounds for certain animals as well. That would be a really interesting feature to utilize to give animals their specialized features and let them display it in Jurassic World Evolution 2, such as Mononychus, if it were to be added, could utilize its long tongue to hunt termites. Roads and terrestrial species transport is something that I would actually really like to see. Like imagine a dinosaur's escaped, you don't have helicopters to transport it, and you need an alternative method. So bringing in a truck to transport your dinosaurs for you, it would allow you to transport more dinosaurs at once. Because the trucks that you see in Chaos Theory were actually able to transport 2 dinosaurs at a time. So I think that would be a really cool feature to see added into Jurassic World Evolution 3, building roads and actually having trucks transport animals like a Baryonyx around. Holograms would be another cool decoration to see in your parks, being able to select species that are present in your park and display them in a holographic projection. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the Innovation Center in Jurassic World, and I think that would be a really cool feature to see here as well. Some genetic defects would also be an interesting feature added to some of the dinosaurs. A dinosaur like Therizinosaurus, as seen in Jurassic World Dominion, was likely born blind and had to use echolocation as a method to get around. Another animal like the big rock Allosaurus that was also seen in Chaos Theory had a blinded eye. However, that was likely not genetic. That was probably an injury as a result of some fight it had. But the Therizinosaurus was an interesting example of what could happen if an animal was born blind. Like imagine that a blind T-Rex would have advantages in smell and hearing. I think that would be really cool. and perhaps even animals having larger horns, like the Yoshi's Triceratops specimen able to be reflected in the game, with certain animals developing larger ornaments, like a ceratopsian horn, or potentially even an ankylosaur tail club, or stegosaur plates, so, stuff like that. Or even some asymmetry like is seen with Bumpy, with one horn much larger than another. Some extra features to the ranger teams would also be really cool, such as ranger teams going around on motorcycles or quad bikes. That would allow you to herd animals a bit better, I think, and would make for an interesting spectacle. And motorcycles could potentially get to places that the jeeps cannot. So I think that would be really cool. And ranger ground teams, sending people into dense areas, like what was seen in Jurassic World, where an ACU team was sent after the Indominus Rex. So a ground team could actually be quite effective on certain animals. But a feature that I think would be interesting to see could be a shoot to kill feature. Say if a dinosaur has escaped and it's killed a bunch of people and you haven't been able to take it down. So you have to resort to some drastic measures and actually have to put that dinosaur down. I think that would be an interesting feature that could be both detrimental to your park, but also somewhat of a necessity. Like a park could get to such a point where killing the animal would actually be necessary to ensure that the park continues. So it would be a sad feature, but like it is realistic to some zoos as well. So it's not too hard to imagine. But it would be interesting to see if Evolution 3 could adopt that feature. Another feature I would love to see would be new live feeders. The goat, I think, has run its course right now, and the tuners as well. So I think adding more live food to the lagoons, the aviaries, and the main habitats would be really good, such as deer to better recreate Bison Valley, a live shark, a cow crane feeder, or even just releasing a cow from a platform. Maybe even releasing ammonites and squid into the lagoons would be pretty cool as well, and pigs, and maybe even chickens, I don't know. But there's all sorts of animals that could be released to better feed your animals and allow them to adopt their realistic hunting instincts. And something else that could also be introduced is live fish in water bodies. So say if the fish feed is interesting, but I think if you were to introduce some live fish that you could just release into a water body, especially if water depth were to be added, it would be able to create a much more interesting environment, but also allow those kinds of animals to feed more naturally. Now onto something I would actually like to talk about. More accuracy to the movie creatures and their models. So the T-Rex is probably an animal that I see has suffered mostly from this. Where I think in Evolution 2 they tried to sort of merge the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World T-Rexes together. And the head was made much too wide in my personal opinion, at least the snout. Like you look front on at the T-Rex and it doesn't look threatening. It's got this huge wide mouth. So like if the skull were to be better suited to maybe the Dominion T-Rex or something I'll talk about later. Like we'll get to that a bit later, but there's all sorts of animals like the Fallen Kingdom Brachiosaurus, the Carnotaurus I think could be improved a lot better to look more like this. Like this Carnotaurus was awesome, but the Carnotaurus we have right now doesn't really have the sort of look, and the head isn't quite as wide. The Apatosaurus 2 is quite thick in the game, and held quite low to the ground. Like if the legs were to be extended and thinned, and the body were to be brought in a little bit from like having that intense mass, I think that would allow the Apatosaurus to look more real, in a sense, like making it seem more like a functional animal rather than this huge, hefty animal that's like got so much thickness to it. I would just like to see that, and even giving the Baryonyx a 2018 skin, as we don't really have that reflected right now, giving it not the intensity that the eye had in Jurassic World Evolution 1, but sort of that glossy golden eye. And even adding a juvenile Allosaurus variant I think would be pretty cool as well. As well as even the Jurassic World Dimorphodon, which had the Pycnofibers on its back. Sort of a larger variant to the one that we got for the Malta DLC, And same for Mosasaurus. Mosasaurus, I could see getting a bit more detail done to it and giving it a 2018, 2015, 2022 skin, because I really don't like the red spikes it currently has. Like, that doesn't really fit the Jurassic World Mosasaurus. It didn't have that, so I don't know why that's still there. But hey, if we were to get that skin, I would be happy. And a new game would also be a good opportunity to add the missing Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory variants, such as that of the Spinosaurus and the Suchomimus. These designs don't exist in Evolution 2 right now, and I think Evolution 3 could adopt these skins, and by the time Evolution 3 releases, there could potentially be 3 seasons of Chaos Theory to get variants from. Now, here's the extra addition I was going to talk about. So, having era-specific variants. So the T-Rex, I think, is a case study for this, as we could have a T-Rex that is of the Jurassic Park trilogy, with the Dominion T-Rex fitting onto that one, as when they're making Dominion, the T-Rex was actually remodeled to better suit the Jurassic Park look, and they did that quite successfully. And a variant for the Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom as well would be pretty good as well, as that T-Rex does look a bit different to the Dominion one. I forgot I had that Dominion picture in there. But there could also be another variant for the Prologue T-Rex. This will just be that the eras don't have to try to be merged into one T-Rex. So I think that's something that Evolution 2 has that I haven't really seen before, where they try to merge 2 eras together rather than having different variants. And I think 3 T-Rex variants would actually be pretty good. And the same can be done for Velociraptor. It also has 3 variants. That being the one from Jurassic Park and the Lost World, a Jurassic Park 3 variant, and a Jurassic World variant. All these Velociraptors look very different. And the rest of the species that had a similar situation where they were translated from the Jurassic Park era into the Jurassic World one, with their models changed somewhat and a few key differences. And I think that would be really good to have different variants to better reflect their respective eras. The final feature I'd like to suggest in this video is a hybrid creation system. Hybrids are not everybody's favorite part of the Jurassic World trilogy, but I think being able to create your own hybrids would be interesting. I just saw this image on Reddit, I think it was, and I thought it was a really cool way of doing hybrids. And so you make up your species, but you also change the areas that you want and suit them to the particular animal. And the system could potentially have the features sort of changed to the right animal. So you have carnivore large as a base, have a ceratopsian head, and you could potentially pick the species that you want. Or an ankylosaurid body, the arms of a raptor, the legs of a raptor, tail of a stegosaur, and of course the patented skins. I think that would just be a really cool way to make diverse hybrids and be able to craft your own. And yeah, I think that would be really cool. Allow for more hybrids to be added without them having to be recycled or part of a DLC. You could just make and break your own. And I think Ultimasaurus would be a really cool addition as well. But yeah. It's not a guaranteed, but the hybrid creation system would be an interesting feature to see added. And so, that is all the features that I could potentially think of for Jurassic World Evolution 3. I mean, there is another one, combined amenities. So allowing you to have a gifts amenity, and a drink amenity, and a food amenity, all part of the same building. I think that would be really cool, being able to use space a bit better rather than having whole buildings dedicated to that, and better create a main street as well, because Main Street actually had a lot of different attractions on it, and I think it'd be much easier to recreate it if you could merge the amenities. But there we go. So if there are any other features that you think Jurassic World Evolution 3 could add that I did not list here, I would really appreciate them being left in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more speculation on the potential of Jurassic World Evolution 3, as it isn't guaranteed, like, we do know that Frontier is working with Universal again, and I imagine that is for another Jurassic World game. So that's all I can assume from that. But when this comes out, I don't know. It likely around the same time as the next movie. I I would like to say that. Like, we don't even know if the Park Managers Collection Pack was indeed the last DLC. It just felt like that. It felt like it should be the last DLC, as it really was sort of a wrap-up of some of the more requested animals in the game. But, yeah, like, Evolution 3 and Evolution 2's futures are sort of clouded right now. You don't really see where it's necessarily going. And a lot of people probably don't want to accept that Evolution 2 is coming to an end. We did have a really good run with it. Evolution 2 has grown to become so much more than what Evolution 1 was. And yeah, Evolution 3, let's see where it goes. And if it will happen or not. But there we go. That is all the features that I wanted to post to you. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below on Jurassic World Evolution 3 and these features. If there are any more features you'd like to suggest, leave them there. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.